You know that quiet that settles in late at night when the whole world is asleep, but your mind is just getting started? It's running a marathon, replaying conversations, dissecting every single decision, tracing all the different ways things could have gone. It's just this relentless, high-definition analysis of everything. And somewhere in that quiet, a question starts to surface. I mean, you've checked all the boxes, right? The achievements, the intellect, the success. If someone looked at your life from the outside, they'd see a perfect blueprint for happiness. But on the inside, there's a disconnect, a kind of hollow space where all that contentment is supposed to be. It's this nagging, persistent feeling that something is deeply wrong. And the worst part? The guilt of feeling this way when you have so much. Well, that just makes everything heavy. You know, that's not just a nice line from a poem. It's basically a diagnosis. The very tool that got you all that success, your mind, can also be the architect of your own suffering. That ability to see the world with such brutal clarity, it can start to feel less like a gift and more like a curse, one that isolates you, that weighs you down, and separates you from that simple, unexamined joy you see in everyone else. So that's what we're gonna do. We're about to take a journey into this hidden psychological landscape, a place where success and intelligence collide with anxiety and alienation. We're going to explore why a brilliant mind can feel like such a burden and how that very vulnerability can be weaponized, sometimes even against yourself. Look, society tells a really clear story about intelligence, doesn't it? It's the ultimate advantage. A high IQ, we're told, correlates with all the things we're supposed to value. Doing well in school, climbing the career ladder, even living longer. It's sold to us as the golden ticket, a guarantee of a better, more fulfilled life. But then you look at the actual research, and the story gets a whole lot darker. There was a major study of Mensa members. We're talking people with IQs in the top 2%, and it found they have dramatically higher rates of diagnosed mood and anxiety disorders compared to everybody else. It's like the very thing that gives them an edge comes with this profound psychological cost. And this cost, it isn't just one thing. It's this whole constellation of burdens. You set these impossibly high standards for yourself because you know what you're capable of, and then you're just crushed when you fall short. You overanalyze everything, replaying one offhand comment someone made for days. You feel disconnected, like you're operating on a totally different wavelength from the people around you. This isn't just in your head, it's a well-documented psychological pattern. Okay, so that brings us from the symptoms to the underlying conditions. We're moving from what it feels like to why it happens. And we're going to map out the landscape of an inner world that you might have felt, but maybe struggled to put a name to. So, existential depression. It's not really a chemical imbalance. It's more of a philosophical one. It comes from grappling with the big, unanswerable questions. Death, the fact that our time here is finite. Freedom, the reality that there's no preordained path, and we have to create our own meaning. Isolation, the truth that we are fundamentally alone in our own consciousness. And meaninglessness. If all that is true, then what's the point? A highly analytical mind just can't ignore these things. And this can lead to something called self-alienation. It's that growing gap between who you really are and the person you perform for the world. Perfectionists know this feeling intimately. You build this facade of competence, of having it all together, because you think that's what's expected. But over time, that social mask can feel like it's fused to your face, leaving you feeling numb and not even sure who you are underneath it all. You basically become an actor in your own life, and the applause feels empty because it's for the character, not for you. You know, really intelligent people are often intense idealists. They can see the patterns, the injustices, the hypocrisy. They can imagine a better, more logical, more compassionate world with such stunning clarity. But they also see, with that same clarity, just how far reality falls short of that ideal. And this creates this constant, low-grade frustration with the world's messiness. And here's the emotional alchemy of it all. That frustration, that idealism, it curdles into anger. But what can you do? Your anger is aimed at systems, at fate, at human nature itself. It's a powerless anger. And when that energy has absolutely nowhere to go, it turns inward, collapsing into the heavy stillness of depression. So far, we've been looking inward, right? At the internal struggles of a bright mind. But now, we're going to flip the lens around because the very sensitivities we've been talking about, the overthinking, the deep desire for meaning, that feeling of isolation, well, they can make you a prime target for a different kind of darkness. Let's be clear. Dark psychology isn't some kind of magic or mind control. It's the weaponization of human nature itself. It takes the very tools we all use for connection, empathy, trust, persuasion, and just strips them of all ethics. A manipulator understands your desire to be understood, your fear of rejection, your need for validation, and they build levers out of them. First up, gaslighting. This is that slow, insidious erosion of your sanity. They just rewrite reality bit by bit until you start to doubt your own memory, your own perception. The goal is to make their version of events the only one you can trust. Then there's love bombing. This one preys on that deep need for connection. It's a tidal wave of affection and attention. It feels like you finally found your soulmate. But once your guard is down, they pull it all away, leaving you desperate to get that feeling back, willing to do almost anything to restore that initial high. This is basically a punishment for having self-respect. Anytime you set a boundary or express a need that doesn't serve them, you're made to feel selfish or difficult or ungrateful. They're weaponizing your own empathy against you, making you feel responsible for their emotions. And projection, this is a shockingly effective deflection. They're being dishonest, so they accuse you of lying. They're being manipulative, so they call you controlling. It immediately puts you on the defensive, forcing you to prove your innocence while their own behavior just sails on by, completely unexamined. Now, these tactics are often the go-to tools for personalities that fall into what psychologists call the dark triad. This isn't one thing, but three distinct patterns. You have narcissism with its core of grandiosity, which uses things like love bombing to get admiration. You have psychopathy, which is defined by a lack of empathy, so it uses guilt tripping because to them your emotions are just tools. And then there's Machiavellianism, the master strategist who uses cunning, deceit, like gaslighting to control the whole game. Each trait has its own preferred weapon. We've seen how other people can manipulate us. We've put names to the tactics, we've identified the architects, but now we come to the most unsettling part of this entire journey. The part where we take everything we've just learned and turn that mirror around on ourselves. And this is the crucial turn. What if the harshest, most critical voice you ever hear isn't coming from someone else? What if the most effective manipulator in your life isn't a partner or a boss or a friend, but the critic that lives inside your own head? Just look at these patterns, that harsh self-talk. That's a form of emotional abuse. The imposter syndrome, feeling like a fake despite all your success, that's a form of gaslighting, where you convince yourself your own achievements aren't real. Tying your self-worth directly to your achievements, that's holding your own self-esteem hostage, a classic tactic of control. Perfectionism isn't just about having high standards, it's a sophisticated, internalized system of self-manipulation. The abuser has moved in. This quote from research on perfectionism is just heartbreakingly honest. It lays the whole bargain bare. The perfectionist sacrifices the chance for real connection, for love, in exchange for validation, for admiration. They choose to be respected rather than to be known, because being truly seen, flaws and all, feels way too dangerous. The mask of achievement just feels safer than the vulnerability of being real. Okay. We've journeyed through a pretty dark landscape, from the paradox of a brilliant mind to the tactics of manipulators, and finally, to the critic within. So let's just slow down for a minute and bring this all to a final, crucial point. The path out of this isn't about fighting or fixing. It starts with something much, much quieter. Because ultimately, you cannot defend against a tactic you can't name. You can't heal a wound you don't even know you have. The whole point of this journey wasn't to give you a cure, but to give you a vocabulary. It's about handing you a lens so you can finally see the invisible mechanisms at play, both outside of you and inside of you. Awareness doesn't magically make the problem disappear, but it changes the game. It gives you a choice where before you felt like you had none. And so, this is the question we'll leave you with. Once you start to recognize the patterns, the gaslighting from others, the love bombing, the inner critic that mimics those same tactics, you gain a new kind of power, the power of observation. You can start to untangle the knots. So the next time you feel that familiar pull of anxiety, of inadequacy, of that deep existential dread, just pause and ask yourself, now that I can see the strings, who or what is really pulling them?